Hello everyone. It's been a while since I did a video. Today I'm going to do one on water mixable oils. Now, people say, well, yeah, you can't mix water with oil, which is true, but I guess scientists, that's why they get paid good, figured out a way to make water molecules stick bound to oil and somehow being able to release it. Now, how that works out, I don't know how they do it, but hey, amen. Luckily they did it. So I'm happy about that. Now, I've recently switched from my regular oils, traditional oils, which would be like, your Winton, because I noticed with the solvents and everything, my hands were starting to peel a little bit. Of course, it can't always be good when you have solvents. And plus the smell, I know there's odorless mineral spirits that you can use, but still, just because you don't smell doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. So I've tried water mixable oils in the past, and to start off, I started with this Georgian set here, which I bought at Michael's. If you got a coupon from Michael's, like one of those 40%, 50% coupons, they were not bad to start off with. I just wanted to see what it was all about and everything else like that. They are pretty good. They're nice and creamy. All right, they work very well. But I found, and also Lucas, I like Lucas, but the only problem with Lucas, even though it's a good paint, it's really nice. It's made with beeswax and it's water mixable. But the only problem is Lucas dries pretty quickly on your palette. Should I say within 8 to 10 hours maybe. And what I've noticed is that when I try to mix some water with a little bit of dried up Lucas, it would, how should I say, it would make little particles. It would not mix very well, re-wet itself with the water. It would be just like as if I took water and oil paint together, traditional oil together. If you ever tried that, it doesn't really work very well. I'm thinking most of the waters or the surfactant have evaporated from the paint, causing that. So if you want to paint really fast and layer on very quickly, Lucas would be a good brand to start with. You find them at Jerry's Artorama, and I think Dick Blake's also has them. It's good to, if you want to paint fast and, get on other layers faster, because it dries a little bit faster than your Georgian. Now, recently, actually the first water soluble I've tried was Artisan. And initially I really didn't like the system very much because, and I don't blame Winsor Newton, I blame myself, is because I did not know how to handle this paint. It's only till recently that I've learned the best way to handle and use water mixable paint. So I went back to Artisan, which is it's a pretty good deal. You could get them at Michael's, pretty much everywhere, and they work really nice. They mix with water very nicely. I don't get particles, and they clean off pretty good. So if I had to recommend, if you want to start off painting, just to get a feel of it, I would go with Artisan. Okay, and it all depends on your budget, what you want to spend. Georgians are a lot cheaper, and you could try that just to see how it works. But Artisan is the one that I use. Now, what have I learned from all this? Okay, what I've learned was when you take, now on all the sites, including Winsor Newton and other water mixables, you can mix the mediums together just like you would do odorless mineral spirit and stand oil together. Remember, I used that mixture of 70-30, 70% odorless mineral spirit, and I use 30% stand oil. Just use as a vehicle, as a medium to paint, and makes it flow easier and make the paint a little bit more transparent. Well, apparently you could do that with water mixable oils, but I don't recommend it. All right, this is what happens. I believe, let me see, where's my, this is one that's mixed already. Okay, Now it's separated. Watch what happens when I mix them together. So here I have stand oil and I have thinner, artisan thinner and artisan stand oil. So watch what happens. You get this milky white emulsion, which is normal. That's what it's supposed to be. But I've done paintings with this before, just like this, and I've run into trouble because one, it changes the color of your paint, just like acrylics. It starts off light, and when the emulsion dries away, the water evaporates and the surfactant, it goes back to its normal color. Well, okay, no problem. If you're an acrylic painter, you've dealt with that before. Not a problem. You could do it. You could do it with this. Okay, but here's where the problem is. When you mix these two together and you start doing a painting, your paint will stay sticky for a long time. And I mean, I've had it to the point where it was a little bit over a month. I don't know why. When you mix the compounds together and you do paint, I still haven't figured that part out. And I've done research and I'm still trying to look for anybody who's had the same problem, and it was kind of hard to find anything on the subject. And I'm still trying to experiment, but I stayed away from this. And actually, I've sold a painting thinking that it was dry, but apparently it was still sticky, you know, and this could be embarrassing. I do not recommend mixing the solutions together. Okay, here's what I mixed: this stand oil, artisan stand oil, and artisan thinner. So I've tried a different approach to this. All right, instead what I do, this is just water in there. Of course it's dirty, but you know. So what I would do initially to start a painting, I try to complete different thing. I say, well, what if I don't mix them together? What if I do them separately? So your water serves as your turpentine. Basically, that's how it works. You thin it. I use a thin layer or wash with water, okay, which would be like thinning your paint with turpentine, painting it on, and the paint will dry quickly. All right, especially if you go outside, it will dry fast for you, plein air artist, whatever. If you do that, your paint will dry really fast. So then what I would do is I start my initial painting with water. Then I have this is my little cup. I will use linseed oil, just regular linseed oil. I put in there, and once the painting has tacked up or dried a little bit, and you will see, I will use, you know, the subsequent layers with linseed oil only. Make sure you clean your brush. Once you rinse your brush in the water, once you rinse it, make sure you clean it off on a rag. Okay, clean off your brush really good so that there's not too much water. Leave it to where it's just damp a little bit, but you know, not fully wet, because then you will have the same situation as if you just mix these two together. Okay, so go girl. Sorry about that, I had to let the dog out. So start with your painting with water. Thin out your paints with water initially, just like you would do with turpentine. Do your initial wash, and then once it's somewhat dry, go back over with linseed, or if you want me stand oil, I could do the same thing with stand oil. The difference with stand oil is that you will not see the brush marks. It'll be, stand oil is thick, you know, it will your paint will lay out flat. There will be no really any brush marks. Okay, so that's just a little quirk. And second, another thing is that water mixable paints, whether it's artisan or Lucas or Georgian, they tend to dry faster than your traditional oils. Usually by the next day or maybe 3 days, depending how thick I paint, the paint will be dry. Now, I have sent a couple paintings which were completely dry to the touch, and I've sent it to a couple clients, But the way I sent, I know most of you seen that I sent my paintings and I put bubble wrap on the painting. Well, apparently that was a mistake. Okay, unless it's completely bone dry, I guess I will either try to find an alternative, or I'm trying to test something out different, because I had the bubble wrap with the bubbles down. I'm gonna try it a different way. I have another painting that I have that I'm gonna try it on, that I'm gonna sacrifice and see and test. Otherwise, I was doing some more research. A parchment paper would be another problem solver. That it will not stick to your paint or leave any kind of markings. But I never had that with traditional oil paints. For some reason, with water mixable paints, I'm having this kind of issue. But I've had other water mixable paints for some reason that I sent. I did not have such an issue. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's because of the humidity in Florida that the top layer, even dry, for some reason the humidity kind of reactivates the top layer of the paint. I don't know. And I've done research, and apparently it's happened to a few other people. So, but there was really no explanation to that. But the painting, I promise you, I would touch everywhere. Everything was just dry, just as if I was an acrylic painting. But that's something to watch out for. So I'm looking for another solution to this. So we've gone over the mediums. Don't mix together. Use them separately. And I might even do, if we have time, I might do a little demo real quick of what it looks like. Now, the other thing is brushes. What do I use for my brushes? I have found that these brushes by Princeton Catalyst, okay, they call it Polytip Bristle Brush. They're synthetic bristle. They have a good spring to it, and they hold just enough water, and when you paint, they're pretty smooth to paint with on the canvas. They're really nice. Another brush that I use was by Creative Mark. Jerry's Artorama sells these. The Pro Krill, and they work for acrylic and oils. It's a synthetic bristle as well. Very good spring to it, you know, nice, and it moves the paint around very well. Another one, if you want more of a bristle brush, if you're used to painting with bristles on with traditional oil, was Pro Stroke from Jerry Artorama. Okay, that's their house brand. It's a really nice. It holds a lot of paint and enough water as well when you put your painting on your canvas or your panels. And again, I use the same synthetic fan brush. Okay, and I still try to use the brights as opposed to the flats. The brights, shorter hair, they move the paint a lot better than your flats. Okay, because your flats has too much of a give, and it's hard to move your paint around, to whereas this, it's a little bit stiffer and moves your paint around a lot easier. So, I mean, these are the 3 brands that I use. I also use another good one that you would like is, oh, that's not it. Bristlon. The Silver Series. Okay, this is a flat, but I would recommend the bright. And it's a really nice brush. A little bit more on the pricier side, but it's a really good brush. These are less expensive, but does the job very well. The only thing I don't like is their round brush, if I can find it. Hold on one second. Here's the round brush. All right. The only problem is that it doesn't stay round very well. I mean, you have to put goops of paint on there and try to keep it nice and round. Otherwise, it almost acts like a flat brush. It's probably good for, I use that for maybe larger paintings. And what's nice with these poly tips from Princeton is the end right here. See how it's pointy? Okay, it's for signing your name and scratching off, doing subtractive work. They're great. So as far as brushes, this is what I use for my water mixables. Okay, I don't use these pro acryls with traditional oils or anything like that. I mean, you could, but I think they'll wear out pretty quickly. I mean, well, they'll probably do the same thing with the artisan, but the only problem is the only difference is I paint with on wood panels, which glides on very well. There's not too much texture on there to kill the brush, or solvents to kill the bristles, the hairs on these. So basically that's it for that. Now, what do I use as a support? You could use canvas, or you could use wood panels. Okay, this is nice and flat. I use birch panels that I cut up myself. Now, I started doing my birch panels a little bit differently. I used to first just paint them, prime and seal them with Kills sealer and primer that you could get at Lowe's, Home Depot, anywhere of those, because it seals the panel. It seals any kind of tenon from the wood coming through, or anything else. It seals it pretty well, and then it primes as well. I think even better than your regular store-bought gesso. Now, two things. When you paint with oils, I noticed with the Kills, if you just do the 3 coat of Kills is what I was doing, is that the paint, even oils, will absorb into it a lot faster. Okay, and if you're painting light colors, it's fine. Okay, because the light colors will still stay, nice light. But if it's when it comes to darker colors that the paint, your darks will dull a little bit. Okay, and then you would have to add a lot more oil to your paints in order for it to bring back the sheen of the paint. Or you could use like a varnish with your mixture, with your linseed oil, mix them together. I believe you could do that, and then you try that, and it will give it a glossier look. Now, what I did different now is this. Now, this is the new panels that I'm doing. You got the Kills, 2 coats of Kills instead on one side. What I do now is I bought shellac. I shellac the front and back so that it doesn't warp, so it'll stay pretty nice and straight so it doesn't warp on you. And then the front of the panel, I'll put 2 coats of Kills. So instead of doing 3 coats, I do 1 coat of shellac and then 2 coats of Kills. And I've noticed when I tried that experiment that actually the oil paints, when I painted dark colors, did not sink or did not dull as much, because the shellac, sealed it from, how should I say, just sealed the wood from and the paint from sinking too far down. Let me show you an example. What do I have here? I have a painting that I just recently did. Here we go. This is a painting that I recently did. I don't know if you'll be able to tell on camera, but the paint, although this is dark, the colors did not sink on this. The oil pretty much, see, this is nice and dry. The oil is dry to touch, but I don't know that I would ship it yet. But anyway, back on the subject was the colors are not as dull. All right, they're nice. It's got a nice all around even finish. To whereas when I just did three coats of Kills, the finish would vary a little bit depending, because the wood has different rates of absorption. But when you put the shellac, everything is absorbed. It's sealed and everything is absorbed in a more uniform fashion, should I say. So I was very happy with that formula of using shellac and the 2 coats of Kills. Worked out pretty nicely. So I'm happy about that. So if you're a plein air painter, I would do that. Use shellac. And I've seen it, I did some research about that, and I've seen other artists use it. They would just use shellac and then use primer. You could use gesso. You could just use store-bought gesso. If you shellac the raw wood first and then use gesso on top, it's fine as well, okay? So maybe I could do a little quick demo for you, I guess. Let me try. First, let me show you the paint. So first, let's do the Georgian. Then we'll do Berlin. What's nice with the Lucas paints, you don't get any runs coming out of there or any, some of the liquid, because they use beeswax, so it's a very uniform sheen. Everything is uniform when it comes out. It's really nice. It just dries pretty quickly. And this is Winsor & Newton. And I'm going to show you what happens when you just use water first. It will react. So right now we're going to do as if we're just painting with, like if you were starting with solvent. Water, remember, is your turpentine. So right now we're using the Georgian. See, it's a little bit, you have to blend it a little bit more, probably add a little bit more water to dilute it very well, okay? It takes a little bit with the Georgian. So, let me see if I could turn this light around for you. Okay. If I add more water, see, it's not flowing. Well, this is what normally it's supposed, let me see if there's any, well, there's nothing on it, so normally it would flow a lot easier than that. Let's try the Lucas. So here I'm adding water. Now the Lucas seems to be blending a little bit better. Let me add more water. And the color will change on you a little bit. When you just add water, the color is going to be like a milky, a little bit, an opaque milky color. And it will go back to its normal color afterwards. So now let me use Winsor & Newton. This was, let me do again the Berlin, the Lucas. You didn't get to see on the difference. It flows a little bit better, I feel, than, see how thin of a wash it gives? Now let me do Winsor & Newton. See, the Winsor & Newton, when I apply water, it dilutes very quickly, a lot easier. Okay. So let's see on canvas. Did you notice the difference? Did you just see the difference? How it just went on the canvas a lot, or should I say the panel a lot better? A lot better coverage than the Lucas and a lot better coverage than the Georgian. I mean, you just saw that. I didn't do anything different except use water and the paint. So let me show you the paint here. Okay, Winsor & Newton, Lucas, and Georgian. And when I add water, let me show you again. See? It just dilutes. It almost like it's melting right away as soon as I use it with the water, which is a good thing. These, I had to add more water and just, you know, go at it a little bit more in order for it to work. And so, and look at the coverage. Highly pigmented and just flows a lot easier. I got a lot more. I can cover the panel a lot better. So now, this is what I mean by when it's dry. See, I can already touch it. I can already touch the paint. This is the Georgian. I can already touch the paint. It's already pretty much dry. It's just like using, and that was barely a few minutes. One, because the panel absorbs a lot more, a lot faster. And I could go over this now with the same paint, just add oil. But I'll show you that in a second. And let me see the Lucas. It's dry. Let's see the Artisan. Pretty much dry. So this is great for those of you who are acrylic painters and want to go into oils because you don't feel like dealing with the color shifts and all that. This is great. And if you're plein air painting, you know, being able to use that water out there without having to use solvent, and it'll dry pretty quickly to where you can start do multiple layers right away. So now I have my linseed oil, which I put in here. Okay, so now I'm going to use my linseed oil without any water on the brush, just linseed oil. I could already just go over this without disturbing too much of the bottom layer. Okay? So, and let me do linseed oil with the Lucas. Now the Lucas dilutes not too bad with linseed. So far the only one that's really did the work was the Artisan. It does pretty good with water. It blends, I mean it dilutes in water very easily, and it covers a lot better. You just saw this in front of your eyes, what I just did here. So this is Lucas with oil. This is just nothing but linseed oil. Okay. And now we're going to go into the Georgian. It's not as saturated as the Artisan by Winsor & Newton. But I mean, it does the job if you want to learn. The only thing is you might, you know, as a starter, you may want to start with the Winsor & Newton because I think you'll be happier with the results and the ease of painting and the ease of diluting the paint. Okay, that's my recommendation. I mean, you could get them at Jerry's for a cheap price, and you could get them at Michael's for cheap as well. So if I had to do it all over again, I would not really buy the Georgian. I mean, you buy within your budget, okay? There's no, I'm not one to dictate what you should buy, but my preference today is Winsor & Newton Artisan. Coverage was a lot better. Dried fast enough, and when you use the linseed oil, see, even with linseed oil, look at that, it's already tacking up really fast. I could use more oil. Let me see here. If I use more oil, I can dilute it back. So now let me see. I'm going to show you the difference in using this milky residue here.
But that's okay.
And I'm going to use it on the Winsor & Newton.
This one too.
Okay. So
I will love that burger. Mommy, can you tell Nicholas to take that burger all the time? And when he doesn't finish it, then I will take it.
Okay.
this is what it comes out as.
Yummy.
Maybe you want sweets here? How can that
And here.
You want the iPad?
Mm-hmm. Mmm. Mommy, when we go there, I'll say, I want a cheeseburger with bacon and cheese and salad.
Okay.
But no onion.
Okay. I love it.
And this and the two buns.
Yeah.
Mmm.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I don't like the feel to that.
Mm.
It feels, as you apply it on your canvas or what have you,
So good.
So what?
it feels like it's sticky. Already, it just feels sticky, and it feels like something is holding back your brush. It feels like you can feel a lot of friction. It does the job of thinning, but it just feels like there's a lot of friction to it. Yeah. See, I would not recommend doing that. So, this is a no. Okay. Do not mix them together. That's my opinion. Just use water first for thinning down your paint to do your initial wash, and then use either your stand oil or linseed oil. Once the paint is somewhat dry, just use linseed oil from then on, depending on how much oil you use. You could continue using water throughout the painting if you want. You know, the paint will just dry faster, and it will be a little bit of, should I say, dull or matte. It'll finish matte, kind of like of acrylics. But if you use linseed oil, it's going to have a little bit more of a sheen to it, either like eggshell to a satin sheen, depending on what you use. Or if you don't want to use water, you just want to thin down your paints, you could also use just regular thinner. Okay, but with using the thinner, it will dry actually slower than if you use water. All right, so just a little tip there. If you use your thinner will dry a little bit slower than if you just use water, because the water evaporates a lot faster under the conditions. And even on the sites that tell you that the water, if you use water to thin it down, it would be it would dry a little bit slower. Sorry for the noise. So basically, that's all I can tell you about that today. I mean, if I missed something that you want to know about, let me know. There are better brands. There are better brands out there than Artisan, which I will probably eventually try. I wanted to try Cobra. Cobra water mixable oils, and there's another one called Aqua Duo. Now the only reason I was going to initially start with Aqua Duo, two things kind of scared me. One was the price. That I really want to invest that much in something, in a new product that I don't know much about. And they're made in Japan. And when I read about their light fastedness, okay, meaning before the color dulls on you or fades, they were not very specific or not very clear on that, on their light fastedness. And a lot of their paints are hues. Very little amount of them are cadmium. You can find some cadmium, but not all of them. A lot of them are just hues. So I'm thinking hue and their light fastedness was, they're being kind of shady as far as explaining light fastedness. So I skipped off on Aqua Duo. So my next paint that eventually, once I'm finished with the Winsor & Newton, is probably going to be Cobra. I've seen a lot of videos and I've read a lot of comments, and everybody seems to be loving them. And they're a lot creamier apparently, and they just go on very, very, very smoothly and very very highly pigmented. So that would be my next step after Artisan. But these are good for the price. If you want to start, there's nothing wrong with the Winsor & Newton. They're great. Okay, so I like them. The colors, I showed you a demo of 3 different brands, the Georgian, the Lucas, and Winsor & Newton, and you saw the difference in pigmentation in all 3 and how well the flow went with this, using the same amount of water, and how hard it is to dilute. So I hope this helps you, that if you ever want to transition it into water mixable oils, it's nice. No solvents, just water and paint. You could go anywhere with that, okay? And it's a lot healthier for you. Oh, one last thing I want to do. With traditional oils, when you rinse your paint inside the solvent, usually a lot of the paint comes off. You could rest assured that the next day you got a pretty decent amount of it out. All right, now with water mixable, if you finish, don't let them sit for too long. If it's overnight, it's okay. But as soon as you remember, get some Dawn soap, put it in your hand and apply it, and you will see how much paint actually still is in here. And you thought that it came out with the water. No, it did not. So make sure you do a lot better care with water mixable paint as far as washing your brushes. You need to wash those brushes, otherwise they lose their spring, and you might as well kiss that brush goodbye, or just put it in alcohol to try and get most of the paint out again. But you don't want to go through all that, so just wash them good. I think that's it for now. I did have a request to do a seascapes with the with sea oats and all that stuff. I just finished a painting with one, but I will work on one in water mixable oils, just to show you how it works and the steps that I go about when I paint with water mixables. So I hope this helped. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. I will answer your question as soon as possible. So enjoy, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.